Welcome to the blueprint for a lesson. During this video, you'll be shown the correct blueprint for a lesson. The reason you'll be shown this is so that you, as an instructor, can structure your lesson in a logical sequence. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a thorough understanding of the logical sequence of a lesson so that your trainees can achieve the best learning outcome. What we'll cover is the introduction to the lesson, the teaching stages, the practice stages, and the conclusion. The reference for this video is the LWP bar G 7 bar 1 bar 2, the Instructor's Handbook 2017. The first thing we'll look at is the introduction. The introduction is broken up into three parts, being the preliminaries, revision, and the approach. During the preliminaries, we'll conduct the attendance check, where the instructor will usually call on the senior ranking student or the duty student to give a parade state. The main purpose for the instructor receiving the attendance check is safety. The instructor's duty of care in the event of an emergency evacuation of the area is to ensure that all trainees under their charge are accounted for on evacuation. Next, we confirm the positioning of trainees. We need to ensure that our trainees are positioned correctly to achieve the best learning. We need to allocate materials. We need to ensure that our trainees have all the required materials to achieve the lesson. Finally, safety. The instructor should provide advice on safety and emergency management issues such as exits, evacuation procedures, and fire drills. The next part of the introduction is revision. Revision is a warm-up for the lesson where previously taught skills and knowledge are confirmed. Revision is usually completed using a question and answer technique and usually covers information learnt during the previous lesson. The last part of the introduction is the approach. The instructor motivates the trainees by giving them a reason for learning. This includes what they are about to learn and why they are learning the new information. The emphasis for the latter should be on how the new learning will relate to the trainee's role in the workplace or in operations. The instructor then gives a statement of objective. This tells the trainees what the standard of performance will be expected of them at the conclusion of the lesson to achieve competence. That completes the introduction. We will now move on with teaching stages. The teaching points for a lesson are grouped into stages. The number of teaching points in a stage will vary depending on the subject matter, the experience, and the knowledge of trainees. Teaching stages should not be so long that trainees will be unable to effectively process the information that is being presented. Teaching stages should not be so short that instructors spend more time introducing and confirming the teaching stage than presenting the new information. Instructors must apply common sense and achieve an effective balance. Teaching stages should build on each other until all the teaching points have been presented. The number of teaching stages for a particular lesson will depend on the complexity of the knowledge being taught. Teaching stages are broken up and taught using the OPP-CCL sequence. The first part of this is opening the stage. The instructor introduces the teaching point of the stage. This introduction orientates the trainees to the content of the stage. We then present the information. The instructor presents new information in a meaningful way. They should link new learning with their knowledge of the subject in a workplace or operational context. Instructors should never rely on presentation aids such as slides as the sole source of context for trainees. Next is the performance. During this instructional step, the trainees will learn by doing. The instructor gives feedback on the trainee's performance and provides learning guidance on how to improve the trainee's performance. Conducting subsequent stages will raise the level of performance and confirm all teaching stages. That then brings us on to confirming the stage. The instructor confirms that the teaching points have been learned. This confirmation can take the form of questions from trainees or questions to and from trainees. If there are no questions, the instructor then moves to close the stage. When closing the stage, the instructor summarises the teaching points of that stage before leading to the next stage. In leading to the next stage, the instructor explains how the learning of the first stage relates to the next stage. Once again, instructors are organising trainee thinking and directing the trainees effectively to promote learning. These steps continue for each teaching stage of the lesson. The instructor then continues to teach in this manner until all teaching stages have been delivered. That completes teaching stages. We'll now go on with practice stages. Lessons may include a practice stage which brings together the newly acquired knowledge and/or skills from the lesson using a problem or activity. Through practice, trainees are able to reinforce their learning and receive feedback from the instructor. In some cases, trainees may resolve problems, work through example tests, worksheets, or complete short answer questions or similar in order to consolidate their understanding of the topic. Practice stages are broken down into 3 phases. These are the initial, secondary, and final practices. The initial practice is a talk-through practice that means the instructor details mental procedures and trainees carry out those mental procedures. A talk-through practice aims to reinforce learning by using a slow, deliberate execution of mental procedures after the instructor has fully described the requirements in a step-by-step manner. Where possible, instructors should have trainees explain the mental steps they are taking. This reinforces learning for them and other members of the class, as well as increasing class participation. Fault correction and feedback on performance are important during practice. The secondary practice is an abbreviated talk-through practice. Instructors reduce the amount of information they give the trainees before they practice mental skills. The trainees now begin to act more independently. Practice becomes more instinctive and automatic. And lastly, we have the final practice. This is a controlled practice where the instructor tells the trainees what the practice is to be, and the trainee practices without further information. Trainees no longer need detailed or abbreviated information, but the instructor may give them cues or prompts if there is hesitation. During all practice stages, instructors must provide feedback and encouragement to trainees and to check for faults. That completes practice stages. We'll now go on with the conclusion. The conclusion confirms that learning has been absorbed and motivates trainees to continue learning. The 3 stages to the conclusion are the test of objectives, the summary, and the administration. During the test of objectives, first, the instructor clears up doubtful points. This is where the instructor asks the trainees whether there are any final questions about what they have learned. This ensures that the trainees are clear about what they have learned before the instructor tests them on their competence with an assessment activity. We then move into the test of objectives itself. This confirms that all teaching points of the lesson have been absorbed and the trainees are competent in new mental skills. It can take the form of a short written test, an oral test, or the performance of mental skills. After the test of objectives activity, the instructors should provide positive and constructive feedback. They must tell trainees the standard that they have achieved and whether or not they have been deemed competent in the skills learned. Finally, we identify and record any training shortfalls or deficiencies for follow-up action. After the test of objectives, we move on to the summary. First, the instructor briefly summarises all the key teaching points. The instructor then provides a statement of relevance, where the instructor now summarises the reason for learning. This reinforces in the trainees' minds the relevance of the new learning to their ability to perform competently in the workplace or in operations. Lastly, we look at the administration. First off, the instructor previews the next period of instruction. The instructor must nominate the time, location, instructor, and dress for the next lesson. Finally, the instructor dismisses the trainees under the direction of the senior ranking or duty student. That completes the conclusion and the structure of the lesson. The main points you have learnt during this video is the basic lesson structure used by ARMY contains 4 parts. These are the introduction, teaching stages, practice stages, and conclusion. Each major part is broken down into phases to be conducted during the lesson. There are 6 parts to each teaching point using the OPP CCL sequence.